excited for all of you to spend Saturday morning with them. All right, good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Haruka. What a wonderful introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Patty Fraser, and I am an employee at Linwood Charlton Center. I'm the team leader of the GPS school program, which is our new name for the school program. So it's Guiding Partnerships and Solutions. So I have lots of experience in the school area, and even with all the experience that I've had over the 30 years, I'm feeling anxious and a little bit confused about the task at hand. So I jumped at a chance to be part of this chat because I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it for all of the kids. I'm feeling it for all of the parents. And how lucky am I to have two parents with me today from the Parents for Children's Mental Health, and they will introduce themselves in a second. Okay, actually, right now, please, Jen,
Okay.
introduce yourself.
Thank you, Patty. I'm Jennifer Layton, and today I'm wearing my PCMH, Parents for Children's Mental Health hat. I have a youth that I'm quite nervous, actually, and worried about him going back to high school next week. So I'm very thankful for participating in today's session, and I look forward to it. And it's Louise, up to you.
Right, and I'm Louise Murray Leung, and I co-lead the PCMH Hamilton chapter with Jen, and Serge is another one of our co-leaders. And I'm also a family member. I've got 4 kids, and we certainly have lived experience of child and youth mental health issues, and kind of having opportunities to share stories and kind of know that you're not alone is what PCMH is all about. And every time we have an opportunity to meet someone new, that's usually the sense that there's this feeling of relief to know that there's others out there who get it, and you don't have to explain or kind of dress things up to feel a little better than they sometimes do. And so it's really wonderful to be co-facilitating with Patty from Linwood around this major time. Global pandemic's a big issue, and how it's impacting our kids is definitely a big deal, and all these changes. So it's good to be here and kind of connect and share. And I think we're particularly excited. This is Jen and I's first session being co-facilitators, and with my work hat on, I am one of the Your Space program coordinators alongside my colleague Haruka, who's also here today helping with all of our back-end stuff. And so this is a first for us, and it's also the first in Hamilton for our PCMH chapter since PCMH became one of a CMHO, so Children's Mental Health Ontario. PCMH is now CMHO's program for families, and we're really excited about that too. That was a long introduction.
Fantastic.
Sorry about that, but
that's okay.
felt good to
Love to hear it.
way.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
So we just go, Jen. Go for it.
Okay, well, we would like to welcome our families. Oh, okay. And we wanted to welcome everybody today. And before we get started, we want to know how you're really doing. Our first activity is going to be a
I was pretty good. Things are going
activity,
to be fine. 66%.
And it's structured
could be better,
as emotion coaching
could
exercise.
always be worse.
So let us know how you're really doing
holding
today.
it together barely. I think
Honestly.
I might be in that percentage. Yeah, okay. So we've got some people kind of all
Yeah.
over the place. I don't see anyone saying that they have everything under control. So I already feel very validated by that because I certainly don't feel like I'm in control. This is hard stuff, you guys. We have been doing it now for what? Over half a year. We have been living with this pandemic and trying to find normalcy. And all of our limbic system and our nervous system is so cranked up that any new stresses are just going to make that even bigger. And going back to school is certainly one of those triggers because it's been a long time since our family bubbles have divided and kids are venturing out of that bubble. And I'm not surprised to see that people are pretty stressed out about that and worried about those next steps. And that's okay. That's why we're here. We're here to just make you feel like you're not alone, to let you know you're not alone, to remind you of your own strengths. Maybe throughout listening to some of what we have to say today, you'll remember some of the things that you're already really, really good at and find your resilience and want to move forward using that positive thinking. One more time, scooping it up from the bottom and recreating yourself and finding the motivation and wisdom to wish our kids the best success as well. So we get it. We hear ya. This is hard stuff. It all makes sense that we would be worrying about so many different things. And as parents, I'm sure I'm a parent, but my kids have grown. So they're not taking that step to actually transition back to school. So I'm sure you guys share in a lot of those worries as well.
Absolutely, Patty. We aren't alone in this, and whether our kids were doing okay, and with COVID and all these changes in our communities and across the world, whether those stresses are starting to make things feel hard, as well as this whole different way of doing school, or if your children already had some existing mental health challenges, and this has really been a time to kind of challenge us further and discover new things. I know for us and our family, it opened some doors that weren't open before, and we found some wiggle room on things that felt stuck, just because we were all at home all the time. And so there's been some silver linings as well. And if that's been part of your experience, we get that too, and now change again, and there's definitely worries for us that those good things that were happening are gonna kind of get undone, and wondering how do we keep that with some of the other things coming back.
Mm-hmm. Especially when it's rapidly changing, and it is likely to continue to rapidly change as we learn about what works and what doesn't work within the school system to keep our kids safe. So even just coping with the unknown and the constant change of plans and never really settling into a solid routine is really, really difficult for a lot of people who need that structure and need that routine. So I wish I could say it's going to get easier, but I don't know that it is. And I think that is the piece that we're all kind of managing, right? Is the unknown, for sure. But we are all in this together, and it's important to remember that there are, even though we feel very isolated, and we have for several months, there are a lot of caring adults out here in the community, and there are strategies and there's resources to tap into to get yourself underway, feeling better and feeling strong to face this next step.
I think one thing I'd add there is that we sometimes forget that parenting, caring for kids, for young people, that is an entire domain of the unknown. We don't know when kids start off as little tiny things. We don't know how they're going to grow, who they're going to be, what they're going to like, what they're going to have troubles with, what their health will be. Parenting and caring for kids is all about the unknown. And whatever age your child is, whatever experience you have, you've got a lot of stuff under your belt already. And so this is something new and different, but in a lot of ways it's got a lot of the same planning, doing the best you can, not knowing what's right, what works better, and just going forward and doing the best you can and making changes and being kind to yourself throughout.
Absolutely. Perfect. We'll try and cover all of that. Let's
In
overwhelm
today's
you with all of
focus,
these
we're going
possible
to talk
worries.
about coping with
I set
stress,
it up like this
changes in the
purposely because this
uncertainties
is what
of going
happens
back
to
to
my
school,
head. I don't know about you
helping
guys, but I'm a
prepare your
very
child or
visual
youth for
person.
going back to
And
school,
there's,
rebuilding those
one
connections,
thought after
setting some
another, and they
small
just
goals, and
compound and
staying
they get
aware.
thicker and thicker and thicker until you really, your again, your heart rate has changed, your breathing has changed. You might not have all the answers to these possible worries, and then more worries just pile on top. So I encourage you to share some of your worries. I am going to kind of highlight a few of the worries that we've been hearing from families and from parents and even from children. So one of them is just getting back to work, for the parents who have been off for so long, finding a new routine and trying to figure out what the school board is doing has made it very difficult to plan for a back to work. Maybe you're looking forward to it, or maybe you yourself are really worried about that next step. So that's something that you're constantly having to think about and manage. Yeah, risk of COVID-19 for my child, youth, or family. This is one we've been all living with for months on end, and it is very real, and it is still very scary. Uh, it is what it is. It's here. We have to learn how to continue to move forward using the best practices we can and understanding what we have control over and what we don't. So we'll get into that a little bit more. Just helping your child or youth cope with COVID-19, the rules that come with that, and then this expectation about getting back to school when we don't even really know what school is looking like. Again, just creating a normal kind of routine for your family might be a huge stressor for you. Everything is topsy-turvy, financial issues, resources to help daycare, all of those things can go a long way to making you extremely stressed out. Racism or discrimination and your child's safety. I think it's really, really important to highlight that the past several months have not only been about COVID. There are very active movements out there, Black Lives Matter, and some of the other political things that have been going on with the BIPOC and the U.S. politics. Kids and youth are hearing these things. They are getting wind of this on the news. They're hearing their parents talk about these things. And for any of our minority groups in our community, we want to be thinking about them and what it means to them to be returning back to school during a time where there's a lot of unrest, civil unrest. So that is a huge concern. Just worries about, like you said, Louise, maybe there was mental health issues and concerns prior to COVID. How does that increase the worries that you have about your child returning to school, and are they going to see those services, and what are those services going to look like, and are they going to get caught up with their academics? I mean, the list just goes on and on. So please, if you're struggling with something and you want us to specifically set out some resources for you, please feel free to share in the chat box. Here we've got an I'm worried about peers and feeling disconnected. That's a huge one. We're going to talk about practicing reconnection and how important it is, but actually going ahead and doing it is a whole other thing that we almost have to revisit those skills because we've all forgotten. We've all really forgotten how to reconnect with people. So absolutely. What about peers feeling disconnected? Okay, I got that. Great.
I know one of the worries that kind of pops into my mind and has always popped into my mind when I've felt it necessary to advocate for my child and for their learning needs and for just what's helpful for them at school, that I know that there's kids and families out there whose challenges are far greater than my families were and are at times. And I feel like when I'm advocating for my child, I'm maybe taking away from someone else whose family member or parent doesn't have some of the opportunities that I have to be able to be flexible in my work day, or to be able to have the background that I do have, knowing that I speak English, I'm really familiar with our community, and these are things that make it easier for me to go and reach out to schools and talk to teachers and to principals and things like that. And not everybody has that, and I do worry about what's fair and what's equitable, and so and I think with all the things that have been really required us to keep at the front of our mind, knowing that many families and kids' experiences, this is their everyday. And I think I'm thinking of different ways to advocate that's not just for my child, but for others as well. And what we can do.
Thank you for that, Louise.
It
is. It's so important. It's so important for us, and that's part of reconnecting, right? Is watching out for each other. And figuring out how to not let the physical distance keep us distanced. We still need to learn to reconnect. We have to do it in a safer way physically, right? But the mental benefits and the social benefits and the health benefits of reconnecting with people are far too great. We really do want this to be the next step. It's just that worry about how do we do that really safely. And I think we're all worried about that for sure. All right. So I'm going to get a little bit serious here and do my turkey talk with parents this morning. I hope I don't come across too harsh, but there is a little bit of a radical acceptance here. Mm-hmm. This virus is nasty. We know that. We know that this has changed the world and the way we do things, and this is the way it is. And we can sit around and complain about it constantly. We can have our side conversations about whether or not we want to send our kids back to school, or whether or not we think it's safe. And whether or not we think the school board is wrong or the government's wrong, or, and our youth and our kids are hearing this turmoil. They are hearing these conversations, and it's them that actually has to walk through the doors of the classroom. So I really want parents to be thinking about the fact that this is our reality. There is nothing we can do about this virus except follow the science and the health guidelines, follow the rules that are set out to guide us and keep us safe, and try and move forward. So complaining about it or scaring your children, with your own fears and letting that spill over a little bit too much can actually really backfire for you. So the radical acceptance of where we are at kind of helps you to ground yourself and say, okay, wait a second here. This might not be something that I really like, and I don't want to have to do this, but this is what we're doing, and I'm going to role model this for my kids. I'm going to be very aware of what I'm saying in front of them, how I can reassure them that they are safe and they do have some kind of, I'm just going to use my little arrow here, uh, using this wheel here, the control wheel. Um, Teaching our kids and ourselves, reminding ourselves is what you do have control over and what you don't have control over. And that will give you a sense of your anxiety decreasing if you have a good understanding of, I can't fight the whole system. I can't stop everybody from going to school. This is the way it's going to roll out. And you're either on board or you're not, or you're taking baby steps to get on board. But everybody is starting somewhere. And we have to think about our personal responsibility to our youth and to our children to reassure them. They are looking to us for our guidance, for our support, for our emotion regulation. If we're losing it because somebody's not wearing their mask, they're likely to model that behavior if they're in the same situation. So I know tempers are on edge. People, I've seen a few scenes that I never thought I would ever see out there in public, but it's happening. So we have to be aware of our own presentation in front of our children and youth, because they're the ones who are taking the steps to go through that classroom door and facing their fears. And we want them to feel confident, and we want them to feel like they do have control over certain things. And we definitely encourage our parents to be promoting the positive thinking, even if you're not feeling that way. And that's where your connections come in and your supports. We want to really be looking into what you guys have. And that's your responsibility, to make your connections, to find your teams, to figure out who's going to be in your corner to support you and your child. And it's going to look different from last year. And that's part of that radical acceptance, that's just the way it is. Maybe you had it great last year, but things have changed. So you've got to redo the teamwork, figure out who's in your cohorts, all those things that we've never even heard of before. So it's going to require you to find your calm and move forward one step at a time, prioritizing and focusing on what can I help my child with, what do I have no control over, who are my people, who are my supports, and what do I do if I'm losing it? Because we don't want your kids seeing you guys lose it all the time. That's not helpful either. So I think I talked about self-care, but we're going to go into that a little bit more. So that's kind of my turkey talk. I really think it's important for all of us to take responsibility for what we can do personally. And as parents and caregivers, we have even more of a responsibility because we are huge role models for our kids and our youth. Did I come across too harsh, my parent friends? Or maybe not harsh enough. Should I yell and scream? Take care of yourself.
I think we probably say that to ourselves enough, but and part of one of the things that we can control is how we are to ourselves, and it's not just the self-care of get enough sleep and make sure you're getting exercise, and because sometimes that just seems impossible, and we just feel too empty in our tanks to do that, even when we know these are helpful things. But when we do feel that way, we often add that other layer of, oh my gosh, why aren't I doing this? I'm a mess. Or, we're kind of hard on ourselves when we aren't this ideal. And so all these things Patty is talking about isn't about, pulling up our bootstraps and just, get on with it and get things right. It's about remembering the things that we know that we need in order to be the best we can for our kids. And some days the best we can for our kids is not going to be, our ideal. It's not going to be where we really wish we could be, but this awareness and being able to say to our kids, I really feel like I'm not having a great day today. I think I need some time just sitting and reading a book, or hey, do you want to go for a walk? And you can role model that self-care and talking about your feelings and being responsible, because when you're not feeling great and your kids know you don't feel great and then they see you doing something that's maybe going to help a bit, then that helps build those connections, as well as helps your child feel like this is something they can do too when they're maybe not having their best day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in order to be your best self, you guys want to kind of go over some of these thoughts, some really good things to ask yourself, I think.
Yeah,
Sure.
this is kind of all connected to that. These are things that we can kind of check in with ourselves about, to kind of refuel ourselves. Sometimes that's the hard part, is when we feel like we are tired and overwhelmed and haven't had all the things we need and the supports that we need. There are things we can do to kind of fill our own tank a little bit. Jen, any of these really stand out
Yeah.
for you?
Well, I think all of them are quite important, and I know it's very challenging and difficult sometimes for us parents or caregivers to kind of give ourselves a little kick in the behind to get going, and it's hard to get motivated. But sometimes thinking about what did we do before that might have helped us get out of a difficult or challenging time. Maybe taking a look at some of the needs that we have as parents. What are our child's needs? And thinking about our values. And there's so many different things. And one thing that Anne Douglas said was to shine a spotlight on everything that we are doing right, even if it's something just very, very small. Um, try. It's hard to try to be positive when we're feeling so down, but if even just one small little positive, you're going in the right direction. Um, and understanding that we can reach some of these small goals together, through peer support or friends and family that are supportive. Um, Anything you would like to add, Louise?
Um, I think I could share a little bit about how this helps me when I'm feeling stuck, or when I'm feeling an attack of the shoulds. I should be doing this. I should be making sure that they're ready for a full course load, or I should be doing this. And as soon as I start trying to do things at home with the family that's really coming from the should side, things start to not feel good. And my relationship with the kids starts to feel more strained. I'm not feeling as connected. They're feeling frustrated. But when I kind of pause and realize, okay, wait a minute, this doesn't feel great. These interactions aren't feeling the way I want my interactions with my kids to feel. I want them to feel supported, and that they can come and talk to me, and that we can be honest, and that they'll reach out for help when they need it. Because if we don't stay connected, they might not come to me or to other caring adults if they are going to feel like they're going to get the shoulds and that judgment. And being able to focus on what's important to me, it's really important to me that that we have a relationship that feels like we're on each other's team. We're all on the same team, even if we might not agree on what that team wants to do, that we're there for each other and we're going to work it out. Collaboration and problem solving, super important for me. And that was something we just learned through the challenges with some of the really, really tough times, that when we're in it together and you're working with your child, then you're not doing things to them or for them. You're in it together, and that empowers them. And as soon as I prioritize that, the shoulds kind of fall away. And it may mean that what the goals we're setting look different. We may not be saying, all right, full course load, we're going for it. If I connect, I check with our values, I check with our needs, we check with each other, then we can say, you know what, Mom, I'm not ready for that. I wasn't ready for it before. Why would I be ready for it now? And I can say, you know what, you're right. We gotta plan with that side instead. And that feels so good. Even if it was, we have a difficult interaction and I can see they're frustrated, I can go back and say, you know what, I'm really sorry. That was me kind of, getting caught up in feeling some stress and pressure. And I'd like a redo. We do a lot of redos. And I find that works pretty good and helps me feel good about how I'm here for my kids, and helps me feel good about me. And when I feel good about me, I'm more likely to go for a walk. I'm more likely to go to bed at a decent time. And all those things kind of connect.
Absolutely. I think too, in my personal experience, I've learned the hard way sometimes, right? And if I'm happy or taking care of myself, then I'm better with everybody, not just my son. I can make light of things and kind of brush things off, and I have better relationships, especially with my son. So it's important, and sometimes it takes a bit of self-training to get there. It doesn't happen overnight, right?
I really believe that self-care is a skill that needs to be nurtured and practiced and repeated. Not just self-care, but self-talk, kind words, compassion for self, understanding, forgiveness. And when you're doing that in front of your children and you're creating the words and the atmosphere where they're seeing that self-compassion, they are also adapting to those kinds of strategies. And I love how you guys talk about being able to give them the best when you're feeling your best. I believe that with any kind of change as well. If we think about how difficult change can be, change is very difficult, but it can open so many doors and bring about so many things. We shouldn't be afraid of it, but coping with it is a whole different side, right? And if we can help each other cope with all of these rapid changes that are happening just by keeping an open dialogue and sharing our emotions, that's going to go a long way for our little guys.
For sure. And it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to show those emotions.
Yeah. I think all of that is about allowing ourselves to count. We matter. We're not just this, this human whose entire purpose is to serve others, which, some parents and family members may feel that more than others. Certainly in our culture, we do historically expect women, mothers, to, and we still do, take on a lot more than, it's not balanced yet, and in some families it may be more balanced than others, and so we kind of forget to say that we count. We're part of the family too.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Oh, here we go. Here's a self-check. How full is your tank? So when we talk about being able to give and being our best self, we have to have fuel. We need certain things to feel at our best, to be able to achieve that feeling of, okay, I've got this. I am doing the best job that I can do. And that includes your peer support. It includes self-care. Um, Again, driving that point home of self-care. And self-care really is about finding the things that you really, really want and enjoy doing, and then doing them very purposely for yourself. So sometimes a little cheesy, right? Lighting the candles, getting the bath bomb out, listening to the soothing music. But if you're in that moment and you're really, really telling yourself that you deserve that 20 minutes of calm, soft, nice smelly water, that's self-care. It can be as little as a quick bath or a quick walk or eating something healthy and knowing what you just put into your body. So just taking notice of the things that you do for yourself. Family or parent-child relationships. Louise loved hearing about when you were talking about the shoulds. That was a great, I've never heard that before. I like the way that you captured it. When you start to move into the shoulds, that's a sign to you that maybe you're not balancing. Maybe your tank isn't full. Maybe you need some extra self-care because you're starting to feel like you've got to get things done. You've got to get on top of this. And so again, pulling yourself back into the moment and really doing the inventory on what do I need right now to have those really important interactions with my kids. Your skills and your strengths toolbox, which we'll get into that a little bit more. We've all got them, and we forget that we have them. And with the self-care, sometimes we create spaces in our mind suddenly where we're remembering our worth and we're remembering the skills that we do have. And I think that's really another piece of the self-care that's so important. There's so much noise in there. You need calm and quiet to be able to access the skills that you already have and the millions of things you've learned to do as a parent. If there's any other ideas and people want to share what's important for them in terms of keeping their tank full, I would add a big, huge coffee at the top of this list. I don't know, I don't know how healthy that is, but I do know to be my best, I need at least 1 cup, and that fills my tank. So it's different for everybody, right? It's about knowing the things you need, Louise, with your candy. Sorry, did I say that out loud?
Should I crack open my big feet now? I used to have a rule, no candy before 11.
Well, you're good. It's 11:19, so you go for it.
There you go.
Okay, next is we've got a great resource down here. Thank you very much for the great resource. Okay, good.
Yeah, that's Dr. Kristen Navarre. Yep. She's got a book, podcast, website. It's got really easy to use worksheets, kind of activities on there in different, I guess you could say, category. Self-compassion exercises and like a self-compassion break, music. I've only recently came across the website, and it just seemed some really simple stuff that didn't seem overwhelming, didn't seem to current to the times. It felt very authentic, and some of them I connected with, and others less so, and that is how it will be. We're all individuals. And I know one of the things I was going to ask about the self-check is, does anyone kind of do this? Do you kind of touch base with yourself when you're feeling a little overwhelmed or run down? And if you do, what is it that you do?
I have a little ritual. I want to hear from people. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a practice like everything else. You start going to the gym and
I
then you
have to
fall off
admit
the
I
rails.
don't do it.
So what I've learned to do is set aside a particular moment in each day. It just happens to be when I get out of the shower and the mirror is directly in front of me, and I look myself in the eye and I do what's called a tune in. I tune into my body, I tune into my mind, and I really, really kind of gauge, how are you feeling today? And oftentimes, just by saying the question out loud to myself in the mirror, I feel like I get some of the most authentic responses at those times. And then I can plan my day accordingly. So it is something I've managed to commit to memory now. So it is part of my daily routine. But it took me, I'm going to say, about 2 years of daily practice. So that's now an automatic thought. As soon as I get out of the shower and I see my face, tune in. So you can do things like that to make it easier to develop some of these more natural habits. Anyone else comment on anything? Okay.
Yep, there's one there.
I start too
Jen,
big.
I remember you sharing about Post-its. Go ahead, Jen. I know Patty sounds a little on the laggier side.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, okay. And I'm sure mine is as well. Those are fantastic ideas, Patty. Thank you for sharing. Um, I too do, well, something a little bit similar for years. And you talk about being cheesy, but doesn't bother me anymore. But I used to have about 20 sticky notes all around my mirror, and they were self-affirmations. So again, you get out of your shower or you're putting your makeup on or contact lens, brushing your teeth, right? It's there, it's in your face, and it's a beautiful reminder that it's okay. Today's a brand new day. Whatever happens today happens, but when you go to bed at night, you go to sleep, you get up, it's a new day, a new fresh start. So those self-affirmations are a great reminder too. And that took me many years as well. And it was to the point where my sticky notes were really faded. So I had to put new ones up. And just, I love this Snoopy here. This little clip really resonates with me that sometimes I do just admit that that's enough today for today. I'm done. So I can, admit I'm tired. I just need to be alone. And I'm someone that needs a lot of sleep to feel refreshed or recharged. So sometimes my friends will tease me. And, when the street lights come on, they probably think I'm in bed sleeping. But, everybody is so different, and what works for one might not work for another.
So true. There's a comment here that says, I start too big, then I can't keep it up.
Ideas out
and
there,
again, the kind of the gym analogy, right? We're all gung-ho at the beginning. I would suggest, what's worked for me is just tiny adjustments, the smallest thing. Reduce your expectations. Make it so you can't fail, because then you get to celebrate every single day. So just the smaller the expectation, the easier it is to adjust. Excellent. Good discussion, guys.
Yeah, that comes to the goals, which will come up again too when we're working with our kids for getting them ready. And that's that when things feel too much, or we've kind of set that goal that's not a goal that we can guarantee for ourselves. So that's the whole in control, what's in our control and what's not in our control. If as a family member, as a caregiver, you have a lot of responsibilities, sometimes our day and our goal setting gets nudged aside in order to help meet other people's needs and goals. And that's just the reality of, having kids in your life. And we don't want to always be at the bottom of the list, but how it feels to always have those things kind of pushed off, can be hard. And so I go with what Patty says. And I know for me, I can do 2 things fairly well in a day, just 2. And that might mean 1 thing at work and 1 thing at home.
That's right.
And then I can do a lot of other stuff, but I might feel like I didn't get it done, or I didn't do it to the level I would have liked. And so really small things. But combining a couple of goals that you know for sure you can do with one that's a little harder allows some space to get to the end of the day, as Jen said, and be able to say, okay, that was today, tomorrow's going to be fresh. But if we only set goals that might be on the challenging side, even if they are small, then we're not going to always look for those successes. And we may say, well, I guess I got that done today. But if you didn't set a goal to get that done, it doesn't always feel like you hit a goal. So for me, I make my bed every single morning. Like my brain cannot turn on and feel like I can start the day with any kind of that calm mind. It's just a visual thing. I have to, like the rest of my room's a disaster, but if the bed's made, I'm like, it's going to be all right. And so that's something small for me, so that when things are tricky and I come up to my room later and I'm like, oh my gosh, what a mess, I can be like, I made the bed today.
My bed's made. Excellent. All right, this is a beautiful little picture here. When little people are overwhelmed by big emotions,
Awesome.
It's our job to share our calm, not join their chaos. So the whole notion of loved ones are wired together. We help each other through the difficult times, and we depend on each other to co-regulate a lot of times. And you think about how much you get from your kids, how much your kids get from you. It's so important to find that groove together and nurture it, and help each other kind of manage the big, huge emotions. Love this.
Yeah. That's whether they're little in body and age or not.
Yes.
Now, I feel like we got to pause and check in about time, because we had scheduled this session to be an hour, and we did start a few minutes late, and it almost is that hour now. And I'm wondering if participants would be able to comment on whether they're okay with us continuing past the 11:30 mark for a bit. And if that doesn't work for you and you need to go, the session is recorded, and the whole video will be available probably early next week. All right, we've got an I can hang in there. That's awesome. And I'm okay. All right.
Okay.
That's okay. I think we can keep going. If you gotta go, don't worry about it. Go.
You gotta go. That's for sure. You can come back and finish watching the recording. So what we're going to get into right now is just a reminder of what practicing mindfulness is about. And it's a quick video clip that really drives the point home nicely. It's very cute, and it's one you could share with your kids, and it's actually in our transitions webinar that we did last Thursday for youth. So you can also access it through there. So I think Haruka's going to set us up.
And we should turn off our microphones, just so we know. And we'll pause for a little bit once that video finishes, just to allow for everybody's different internet speed to catch up a little bit.
When did you last take the time to do nothing? And when I say nothing, I mean nothing. These days we rarely give our minds a chance to rest. And as a result, we often feel stressed, overwhelmed by emotions, lost in thought almost half of our waking hours. And everybody just assumes, well, that's life. But it doesn't have to be this way. Meditation shows us how to train the mind to be comfortable at rest. It takes a little practice. We're so used to busyness, but calm? That's new. But when we cultivate clarity like this, we might find we have space for more contentment, more compassion in our lives. And don't worry, you don't have to listen to recorded whale sounds. In fact, if you've got a few minutes and the Headspace app, you can learn to meditate right now. When did you last take the time?
So cute. And so true. So I think we'll move. Is that enough time, you think? I think we'll move on to actually practicing a mindfulness activity together. This next clip is pretty quick, but we played it for the youth webinar last week, and right in the moment, it felt really, really good. So if we could all try and get ourselves relaxed and just listen to this video, and it'll walk you through a mindfulness practice.
Hi, and welcome to Headspace. So no matter what's going on in your life right now, no matter how many thoughts are racing around your mind, no matter how the body's feeling, just take a moment to sit down and take a big deep breath, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you breathe in, a sense of taking in fresh air, the lungs expanding. As you breathe out, a sense of letting go of any stress in the body, in the mind, just feeling the muscles soften and relax. And close your eyes if you'd like to. One more. Breathing deeply in through the nose and out through the mouth. And just take a moment to pause. Allow the thoughts to come and go. And then just gently opening the eyes again.
Nice. What was that? 1 minute long, you said, Louise? If you can do that for yourself, just for 1 minute, just take some deep breaths, drop your shoulders, and just be in the moment. That can go a long way to clearing your mind and helping you to reprioritize what your next moves are going to be. Okay. I can't remember who was going to talk about this, guys.
I think Louise.
Louise.
Yes. Oh. I was just noticing a comment.
Nice.
Somebody replied that was nice. And as Patty said, that, it's kind of a barrierless meditation for age, and it's also in the session for young people. It's about getting ready for going back to school. So we're starting now into really the practical side of things, and wanted to pause and make sure as well that whatever particular need or needs that you kind of came here with thinking, oh, this is the thing that I really need to get some tips and ideas about. If you could share that in the chat, and we're going to make sure, because we'll be talking about a few different things, and we want to make sure that we're doing our best to make sure that you have what you're looking for. And if at the end of the session it feels like we haven't quite hit the mark, just let us know, and we might be able to follow up with you afterwards as well, and by email, and give you a bunch of separate resources and things.
Perfect.
So feel free to let us know what you need.
There's a lot of these strategies, and we talk about toolboxes. I shared a story with these guys last night about a little guy that I work with who wasn't able to kind of grasp the idea of what a toolbox was, unless I actually had a physical toolbox for him, which I'm going to make. But if you can think about it, there are so many things that you're probably already carrying in your mental toolbox or your coping toolbox that can take you a long way. And those little things that you've learned over the years, you can share with your children and your youth. And it's a nice way to talk about some strategies, even just brainstorming when everybody's doing really well, maybe a dinner discussion, maybe a time when nobody's feeling threatened by everything, where you just kind of compare your tools in your toolkit and suggest a mindfulness minute or suggest some deep breathing. So there's lots of different calming strategies. Deep breathing exercises, mindfulness exercises, using the use of your senses really helps to find a calm brain. So I'm talking Pinterest, I'm talking social media apps and downloading and Googles and memes, and there's so many different strategies that you can access out there that are kid-friendly and parent-friendly. So do a little bit of research. Distress tolerance plans. These are the what if planning. You know, what if I go to school and I have a bit of a meltdown? What if I go to school and I'm absolutely terrified and I need to talk to mom? So you can review and practice plans prior to them happening. So you might want to talk about safety plans prior to school starting, just so the kids have an understanding of what their go-to is. Who's your new team? Take the time to find the new connections. It's going to look very different with what they're calling cohorts, and who, there's not a whole lot of control over who your new social group will be. So you want to do your best in figuring out who is on your team and who's there to help you with those new peer groups. Positive attitude, again, practice your self-talk and validate feelings. Maybe you set aside some time every day after school, not to just talk about academics, but also to share the feelings that maybe your child experienced that day. So make it a daily ritual. So it's valued and it's important. Skill development. Role play, practice. These kids haven't really socialized outside of their home in a very, very long time. Create some fun scenarios. Your kids will probably tolerate it a little bit more if you can make it fun and silly instead of a lecture. So have fun with it. And then the self-care piece, model and schedule time in. Maybe it's scheduling, a nice walk before getting into your shower routines or your bedtime rituals. So you already have great ideas. It's just a matter of pulling them together and thinking about how we put them into our virtual toolbox. Routines. The importance of routines is absolutely huge. I'm sure you guys can speak to this better than me because you've got kids who are right in the thick of it. I don't have to worry about it so much because my kids are grown now. But I can say that I really miss the days where I had a very regiment schedule, getting the kids up, getting the kids off to school, getting the beds made, doing their chores. That gave me structure too. And now I don't have it, and I realize I'm not as good as it as I thought. So this is an area that I'm trying to really get some practice in, especially heading back to work. What are my new routines? What are my new cleaning routines? How do I fit my hand washing in to my daily routines? How do I help my kids fit in their hand washing and all of these new rules into their daily routine? So take some time, do some planning. Again, do it in a way that's a little bit more non-threatening and fun, as opposed to lecturing and writing a strict schedule that you want them to follow. We want them to be part of their schedule. They're going to feel better about it, and they're going to feel more motivated to follow it if they're part of creating that. Anything to say about that, my parent friends? Because you guys are, like I said, right in the thick of routines in your life.
I think that's a great suggestion, having your child or youth be part of the planning or even just the discussion. Like, hey, what do you think we should set the alarm for? Or even ask them, do you think it would be a good idea if you set an alarm and I set an alarm, and then that way we both don't forget? Or, just getting their input is really important and valuable. It does help. It helped us, and I know we'll be struggling next week or the week after when it all comes down to the reality of things. Teenagers seem to be nocturnal these days, or maybe they always have been, but the bus comes early, and the school days are long, so I can anticipate the grumpiness, so I hope to talk to him about it. Like, when you come home from school, is there something we should do, whether we do separate activities to kind of take those deep breaths, or run down or go for a bike ride, just to sort of let some of that air out of the balloon, so to speak, before we, spend that time together talking about the day, or having dinner together and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely having them included in that conversation is a benefit.
I think of this that might be different depending on how old your kids are. Younger kids, who's the one that's really making the routine happen? It's going to be the adults, the caregivers, and this makes me think of the, what's in your control and what's not in your control, and that collaborating and working with your child and the ideas that you might share and how you might kind of ease back into a routine. You can figure that out together. Older kids, there may be less in your control. You can work with them and support them and have the conversations like Jen is describing. But are you going to be there to physically remove them from bed and get dressed? In lots of families, that's, as the saying is, we pick our battles. And even if that were to work one day, is that sustainable? Is that going to have, what kind of impact does that have on your relationship? Or, if there's negative consequences, if you don't do that, then you don't get, to be able to go online and play games with your friends later. If you want to feel like you're part of a team with your child and that they feel that you're on their side, doing a lot of validation, and we have sessions on that too, being able to say, this sucks. Mm-hmm. You've had months where you haven't had to have a routine that required you to get up early. And even when school was happening all the time, getting up early is hard. And this is going to be really hard. I totally get that. What kind of goals can we set? And maybe it's not going to be the exact routine you'd like it to be that very first day. It may take a while, but I think that's something that you're working on together. And it's even before all of this, I don't know anyone that really had the perfect routine. Some kids are self-starters, and some kids, they're kind of at the height of their productivity at a completely different time of the day. The teenage brain doesn't always work well with mornings. So understanding that's something that's not in their control either. They just have the brain they have.
All right. Getting used to new expectations. Here's a big one here. I think this is probably one of the scarier things that everybody's worried about. What is it going to look like? What kind of masks do we have to wear? Does everybody wear the same ones? What is physical distancing going to look like? How do we talk about that with kids? Louise, we got into a good conversation last night about what was the phrase that you had overheard somebody saying? It was more about your personal distance or your personal space.
Oh,
And that made sense to me. That you also
that's right.
have a right to be advocating for yourself and talking about your own personal space. And that's going to become something that we have to learn how to do, is making sure that we're respecting other people's space, but we're also speaking up when somebody is in our space without creating conflict or without getting into constant fights about it. We see this going on in our stores. People are not handling this well. So chances are we might run into some of these discussions or some of these situations at school where not everybody is used to following the exact same rule. So we're really going to have to pay attention to that and help our kids learn the rules and follow the rules. And then also making sure that we're communicating well with our teachers so the teachers aren't getting bombarded or blamed or screamed at or yelled at, because they also have a really, really hard job to do. Not only do they have to teach our kids and make sure they feel comfortable, but to police all of everybody's space and keep themselves safe. That's a really, really hard thing to do. So we have to remember our teacher friends, that they are parents too, and they are worried about their own families, and they are worried about their own health, but they are also there to do a job, and they are concerned about your kids. So we're in this together. I can't say that enough. I think we all just keep kind of repeating that because that's the reality right now. We've got to rely on each other to help each other get through this. And all these weird new expectations. No drinking fountains, right? So now kids, I think, are carrying around their own stuff, their own bag, their own bottle, their own school supplies. So it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for everybody. What do buses look like? Don't be afraid to ask the people at your school some of these questions, but also keep in mind that they don't have all the answers, that they're also learning as we go. So just try and be patient, and also try and communicate that to your own kids and your own youth. How important it is that we're patient and we go with the flow and we do what we can and we let go of what we have no control over. Okay?
I think part of the practicing different things, it's not just the masks, and there's some good videos out there, and if your kid's got sensory issues or they're worried about how it looks or how it feels for on several hours at a time, try different things and ease into it. Start with a little minute or half a minute, or hang it off of the one ear and get used to what it feels like on the ear before you put it across the face. Get silly with it. You can definitely do that too. Because I noticed in Walmart that Hanes, the underwear brand, is selling cloth masks, and so I was just like, oh my God, it's underwear for your face. And I don't know if that would be a good thing, if that younger kids might be like, ew, you have underwear on your face. I don't know. But this is like our new reality. And, it's something we do need to get kind of used to. But the practicing part being similar to, how we talk to our kids about tricky things when, they feel peer pressure, someone's asking them to do something they're not comfortable with. This will just be a new area, a new topic, where some of those same things we'd want to practice for our kids to be able to say, you know what, I'm not comfortable when you stand that close to me, or, you know what, my personal distance means that you wouldn't touch my bag. So could you please, not do that. I have family members at home, and I want to make sure I'm doing my best to protect them. Or, and also talking to our kids about that so that they understand that they may know other kids in their family situations at home, and they may not. We don't know which kids have maybe other health issues that make wearing a mask hard for them, or especially important for them. And so it's our part to protect others as well as to protect ourselves. And that kind of helps us all feel like we are in it together, and that team approach again. And I do see that we've got a couple of comments there. Okay, this is good. And while we're, Patty, I can tell you're kind of reading those things. I thought those physical distancing Hamilton style billboards that are out there. So there's a skateboard one. There's one that's got the dog, the little bulldog or a pug. I think this is a math lesson. Yeah, it's like, does anyone know how big a skateboard is? There's one with a canoe, and I'm like, what if kids don't know? Or so, some people might have an 8-foot canoe, and other people might have a 12-foot canoe. But it just gets kids thinking, and it does make it a little more fun, and knowing that everybody's practicing it a little bit, and if there's
we're doing it for
friends
each other
that they see,
and that's really important
neighbors.
community connection, right? To kind of reinforce that message that we're all helping each other out. We all have loved ones who might be at risk, for sure. Some of the comments about practicing prior to, love it. The more you can practice and make it fun and non-threatening, the less they're going to freak out the first day when they have to actually do it at school. So I really, really encourage that. I'm not sure what the sports...
And I think some of those what to do if, like I'm thinking of my kids. Sorry, I was just going to say, if your kids are forgetful, like a couple of mine are, there's going to be a day where they're at school and they'll have forgotten their lunch at home. And normally kids might be like, here, have my sandwich or something like that. Is that, maybe thinking ahead about that, being extra careful about trying not to forget things, or, they lose their pencil or something like that. There's going to be each school and classroom and teacher, they'll all have their own kind of processes around that. That maybe, that's going to be, pack an extra, things like that that'll help, limit those interactions that your child may have a hard time with. And also an opportunity to practice saying, oh, well, what would you do? Would you go up to another child, or would you put your hand up and say, teacher, my pencil's rolled way over there. What do I do?
Again, highlight some of the what ifs, the distress tolerance. If something goes wrong and I can't find my pencil case, or I've lost it and maybe somebody's touched it. And, we forget that even those little issues are going to create stress for our kids because it's all new. What do you do if you've lost your binder? Do you pick somebody's stuff up? And so there's such a learning curve, and that's okay. Be patient, one step at a time. Refreshing social and communication skills. Sorry, Louise?
And that's basically all of that stuff. And I think I was just going to say the sports question about soccer, or things playing in this playground. I think different schools will have different guidelines for that because they have different physical spaces. If this is something that's kind of your after-school weekend time, knowing that people in small groups can be outside together, but how do you still play that stuff? I think it's an opportunity to get kids to be creative and say, okay, so it's it's hands-free soccer or contactless soccer, and there's tons of resources out there for different types of games, the kind of books and resources that camp counselors have, and think up all these crazy fun games that are just creative. And say, okay, well, if we were going to make new rules for soccer, what would soccer look like? Does everybody have a ball and you're all trying to get to the net? And is it just based on timers, or is it, teams of two who where kids are maybe already in a bubble with each other, siblings and
Yeah.
things.
My understanding too
It'll be
from
interesting to see how
any of
schools
the
handle that too.
conversations I've had with teachers and with schools at this point is that really getting the kids comfortable just returning is the goal, that they're not going to be jumping into any major academic work, that they really want them to feel safe, secure, and start to make those social connections again, understand the rules and how to do that safely. So there's going to be a lot of guidance for our kids in the first couple of weeks about how they're able to move around the school, who they can move around with, when when do they wash their hands, when do they from school to school it's going to be different. So we just have to be aware of those daily changes that are going to take place, and how can we support our kids to refresh their social and communication skills. We have to also practice our good communication skills with the school as well, and our patience. This is my favorite one because it has me written all over it. You gotta find the funny side. You've got to roll with the flow. Roll with the punch. That's not a good one. Go with the flow. You don't want to be punching anyone. So looking for the fun and the silly in the midst of things. Okay, that radical acceptance. I can't change this. I can't, there's nothing I can do that's going to get rid of COVID. I can do my part, but this is the way it is. So accepting that and working with it as opposed to constantly fighting it. I think that's really important. And to help our kids understand that too, to develop their sense of humor around some of the scary stuff. Reluctance, go ahead.
I think I was just going to say it's a really, we talked about compassion, I think, earlier, Patty. And it's a really, really interesting opportunity, depending on what your own family's experiences are, to be able to connect with other challenging periods in time in history, whether it's locally or in your own family's history, or in other cultures or countries or communities, and be able to say, wow, if this is kind of our first major big, kind of community level challenging experience, what have other people done in challenging times and challenging experiences? And you think of things like, the Diary of Anne Frank, or there's some really wonderful children's books that talk about refugee experiences, and kids that kind of grow up in refugee camps, and then come to a new country and everything's new, and being able to kind of draw some connections and say, there's other things, other big things, and because sometimes we can get really caught in our own experiences, and they can seem like, keeping things in perspective is what that was about, and it can feel overwhelming as though it's the hugest, worst thing ever, and it can feel, and it's okay to feel that way. And it's also helpful to say, you know what, we're not alone in this. What other things have people experienced, and how do they cope, and what kind of outcomes might people come to, and what are we learning together about this, and really kind of, I think I'd heard a radio program a couple of months ago where someone was talking about, these memories are going to be cemented in our children's lives forever. They'll always remember COVID. And we want to make sure that some of those memories that are going to just be part of their growing up, to not all be hard, difficult things with big, worrisome feelings, but that there's other big things in there that are like, whoa, we have never played so many board games before, or I didn't know all the neighborhood, green spaces that I was able to get to, or I didn't know that I could learn to help my family be really wise with our food consumption because it was really hard financially, but I learned how to cook on a budget.
Absolutely. That's a really good
look
point.
for those things.
There's got to be lots of silver linings out there, and again, just putting that focus on the positive thinking about maybe some of the resilient pieces of yourself over the last several months, as opposed to focusing on how awful this has been, right? Uh, just to move on here, reluctance and conflict. Um, you know, with feelings being so abundant and our poor nervous systems, which are stretched to the max, there are going to be conflicts within your family. I'm sure there's been many because you're all trapped in the same space together. So I'm sure you're used to kind of navigating some of this stuff. But as we head back to school and things are changing, I just really want you guys to think about maybe some of the behavioral reactions we're going to see from our kids and to not really get stuck at the surface behavior, but perhaps maybe try and look past that. And we've got our iceberg analogy over here. So oftentimes what we see with the tip of the iceberg is a lot of anger, maybe some behavior that, it isn't the best way for them to express, but it comes out. And if we get stuck there, then we can get stuck into power struggles and everybody ends up feeling horrible because we haven't really dealt with what's going on. So I would encourage us as parents to really, really go underneath the iceberg. Take a look at what might be driving the anger, what precipitated the anger, what is feeding the anger, and avoid the power struggles about telling your child what to do. Instead, open the dialogue about how you can help, or what can you do to be helpful, or is there anything right now, or do you need some space and time? So give them the opportunity to work through some of the feelings here, and not getting stuck at just the level of anger. Does that make sense to you guys? Rebuilding connections. We've already really talked about this quite a bit throughout, but I'm just going to highlight, after I take that off, the teamwork approach. Both home and at school, you've got people you can count on in the community, whether it's at school or out of school. Reach out to those people. Get some connections happening again. Do it for yourself, not just for your children. But if you're venturing out and taking steps to rebuild your connections, that can be really, really good for you as well. I love this. Your vibe attracts your tribe. So remember, when you're making those connections, who do you want to connect with? How do you want to attract those people? What kind of relationship is going to benefit you? What kind of relationship is going to enhance the positive you and bring out the best in you and nurture the best in you, just like you probably have things that you can give to other people. And we all need love and support right now. So let's get it out there. Peer support, giving and receiving, same message, right? We're all in this together. Setting our goals.
And that's, I think, us and PCMH. So we have regular meetings. We had been having them every 2 weeks virtually online using Adobe, courtesy of Linwood. And we'll have a new calendar that we'll make sure is linked to the resource page. You can reach out, connect, text, email, phone, as well as our drop-in virtual meetings right now. And a lot of people I've also heard talking about in responding to COVID and kind of coping and feeling better about things came down to not focusing always on what you feel you don't have, but being able to give to others, and that giving to others and helping out and finding some way that you can kind of have a meaningful impact, whether it's in your own house or your extended family or friends or neighborhood or anonymously at a different level. That can kind of help with that balance and make connections that
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that that information, and such a valued resource in this community. It's very exciting. Okay, I'm just reading something down here. It has a video all about managing reactions. Yeah, the skills for psychological recovery. There's 6 skills in that series, and there is there are webinars that we filmed earlier this spring, I guess. Are they that? Has it been that long? Anyways, please check those out on your space. 5 skills, sorry. Please check those out. I always like to add an extra skill in there. Not sure why. Is there? Oh, it was July. Okay. There's 6 skills and it was in July. I understand you now. Okay. So setting goals. I think we're coming to an end, guys. Setting goals is really important because then you get to celebrate them. And that is a misstep for most people. They forget to give themselves credit for getting something accomplished. And that's why we don't make them huge and goals that you could never accomplish. We make them small, little steps so we can constantly give ourselves the feedback that you did it, sister. You did it, girl. Way to go. And no, we're not going to meet those goals all at once, all at the same time, and we're not going to get it right away. It's about patience. It's about perseverance. And again, being your best you, because when you are taking care of yourself, you want to accomplish more. You do accomplish more. So those goals will be met much quicker when you're in your better self place.
And I think one of the things that I don't know if it's a cultural thing for us, North American, but we're so achievement focused on what can we show people? What is the concrete thing we did that we can show people? And kids feel that pressure in school. It's about marks. It's about this. It's about, high performance and all kinds of different areas. And we kind of judge and measure on that a lot in our society. And for kids and families that struggle with different mental health concerns, that can just add more and more weight and layers of the, how am I ever going to be able to do that? And, that earlier slide about being your best self, it's about being. It's about how we are, not always what we do. And so sometimes those things to celebrate, the goals you're setting, the things you're accomplishing, as Patty said, is about how something happened, not necessarily what happened. So you may not have got them up in the morning and on the bus and to school on time, but if you could smile at each other and say, you know what? We figured out that if we go to bed at 11:30, it's maybe still too late. So let's try something different tonight. And that can be your success. That can be your goal. That can be what you celebrate. And that, I think, just feeds
Hope
us.
is so important. I try and get in the practice of congratulating myself if I remember to look up, because that's one of my things. If I'm looking up, I'm being mindful. I'm away from my device and I'm enjoying the beautiful sky, or I'm enjoying the rain or the rain clouds. And that is a mindful practice that I do. But now I've added the piece about, way to go, Patty. You got like 5 lookups today. Instead of push-ups, I do lookups. They're much easier. And then I get to celebrate, right? Okay, this we thought was important just to go over, because you can have all of these thoughts in place and all of these strategies and use everything that's been talked about, and there still might be some concerns, and you want to be on the lookout for those things. So staying aware of how will I know if they are okay or if they're doing okay. So you want to kind of monitor some of these routines. Sleeping, are they getting sleep but are still exhausted and tired? Are there physical symptoms of anxiety? Are you seeing an increase in stomach aches, an increase in urination, cramps, upset tummies and headaches? Are they actually telling you, I'm not doing okay? It's really important for us to validate that and pay attention to that. Ask them, check in every single day. We are not going to be able to predict what's going on at school. This is an unknown. We've got to get them to let us have that dialogue with them so we can really do a check-in. What's the best part? What's different than you expected? So again, have good dinner conversation about it that's non-threatening. So it's a fun conversation about laughs and what you're learning. And maybe what somebody did that was silly that day, just to kind of keep the focus light sometimes and not get into the heavy. Check in. Is anything feeling really, really too hard? How are the social connections going? How do other people appear to be managing? Talk about those social connections and really, really help to build that skill. That's the big one, that kids really need to practice their social skills again. Be aware of any changes in behaviors, intensity, or reactions, emotional or otherwise. So again, just keep your eyes, monitor. If you can do a little bit of a diary or a log of some sorts, just to keep track of all of the changes your kids are going through and making sure that they're as healthy as they can be. And of course, if you're concerned about substance use, or there's any kind of radical changes in that, these are all things that you want to keep an eye on and potentially get support and follow up with. Louise, were you going to add something to that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Patty. I think, the more connected you are with your kids, the more you're talking, the more you're not just spending all your interactions with them on doing the parenting work, but the relational stuff, the let's play, you want to help me with dinner, or, go for a walk, or tell me what this video game you're doing is about. Those things that keep that kind of that scale balance so that it's not just all trying to get them prepared, but you're balancing that out. The more you're able to do that, the more your gut's going to be able to kind of have that little bit of the radar that's saying, I'm wondering how they're doing. And I think I definitely worry for our family and for other families too about, because sometimes it's our worries are going to make our sensitivity to what we see in our kids maybe it's going to add more to it than is actually there, or the other side where we might be kind of buried in our own worries and we may not pick up something that is there as much as we would like to. So that open communication and really kind of digging. And for me and our family, like actually sitting down at the dinner table and talking about stuff like this, that does not happen. It's not going to happen. It's chaos, and that's not what brings people out in our house. But a couple of questions by text late at night, nobody's watching them, they have time to reply. That works for our kids and teenagers.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Sometimes the teens don't want you in their face asking all those questions, right? So finding creative ways to make sure that they know that the dialogue is there to be had if they want it. Even just, I used to leave my teens when they got a little bit older and didn't want the good night hug or the tuck in. I would leave them little notes tucked under their pillow, just reassuring them and letting them know that I love them. And it was a little less threatening than having their mother come in and smooch them on the cheek. So yeah, kind of meet your kids where they're at, because you want to create a safe and comfortable dialogue about it. You don't want some of this stuff to be forced. They're going to get sick and tired of you constantly checking in, and that will backfire, right? So sometimes just them knowing you're there is enough of a balance. Mm.
And sometimes it's I know with ours as well, not asking about them first, saying, so how are other kids managing? What are you noticing? What are you seeing? And they may start talking about what they're seeing. Oh, and this person's not doing this, or this person's doing that, or this person came 3 times and then they stopped coming and they said their grandma got sick, and and you can just be like, okay, and how are you?
Yeah. Good.
Great, thank you. We've just put up a few phone numbers and places of contact if you need some help for your child or youth mental health. Contact Hamilton, of course, is our gateway to services. Child and Adolescent Services has virtual mental health walk-in clinics for children, youth, and families, which is nice. And then Coast. They are not a rapid response service, but they're definitely crisis support for you and your family. And also check in with the school if you have any questions, speaking with administration, the guidance, if your school has a nurse or a social worker. And always remember your family doctor can direct you in the right direction. And of course, if it's an emergency, you can always go to McMaster Emergency Department or the St. Joe's Emergency Department if you're 18 and older. And of course, if there's any immediate risk of harm to yourself or others, please call 911.
Sorry, I know we're doing
And
a
of
battle
course,
here.
for
You do what you're comfortable with,
for
Louise.
yourself
I
is
won't touch it.
what's sorry. we're having a
Oh, okay. Mental health help for you. So as adults, definitely talk to your family doctor. Call Connects Ontario, Adult Mental Health, Gambling and Addictions. Contact the Ontario Caregiver Helpline. The link is right here for you. Call Coast. Again, it's not an automatic response to the emergency, but it will provide you with some crisis support. The crisis support line, toll free, or the city number. Go to St. Joe's Hospital Emergency Department and bounce back. And the 2 numbers are here for that as well. Okay.
Great. So the power of positivity. These are a few of our favorite little quotes. Every day may not be a good day, but there is something good in every day, even if it's free parking or the free coffee you earned at Tim Hortons. And this little quote is from a little
Yes.
3-year-old, and we definitely, our little ones are so honest. Everything is perfect if you look close enough, which is so true, right? Sometimes we need to think like little ones. That's
Readjust
right,
our glasses,
exactly.
for sure.
And then this is another favorite visual for us as well, the map of positive change. And one of the things we do have control is our own thoughts and actions. So it's within us, the parents or caregivers, to make those positive changes. And, it's so important to build our capacity and to fill our cups. So, if we can be the best version of ourselves, it's to everyone's advantage. So there's always mountains of learning, always will be winds of change, rays of hope. There's always something, the sands of time and the turning tide. So, and waves of uncertainty, which is what's happening right now for everyone. So if we can keep our heads up and try our best to be positive. We can get through this. We've done hard things before. So we can get through this. And I apologize for my dog barking and interrupting our session.
I think he's
I
telling
think
us
so.
that's
She's
a wrap.
probably needing to go for a break herself.
Going over to the compassion planes, perhaps. Well,
Yes. I think, yeah, these are just a bunch of links, and all of these will be up on the resource page for the session with the recording links. These are all clickable as well. There's a lot of stuff out there that can be overwhelming too. Children's Mental Health Ontario, the Back to School Mental Health Kit has a lot of really good stuff in there. Your Space, we have a lot of sessions. Some in the last few months I've definitely been talking about the COVID context, and other sessions are helpful, and you can find things that are applicable to now as well. The Taking Care of Yourself one is all about self-care, and there's a youth session that's also about self-care for youth. And so encourage your young people to go check out the website, and our Instagram account is really targeted for a youth audience, and shares a lot of kind of cool and fun and helpful things. And always, reach out to those that support you already, and build those new supports, and know that we're here on the PCMH side, and remember that you are family too, and all the things that you're working so hard to give
fantastic.
to your kids and those around you, you need that too and deserve it as well. And we're happy to share that with each other. A little bit more about PCMH. There'll be info in our follow-up. And beyond that, thank you so much for sticking it out. Hope it was helpful. Oh, we do see some comments there. Next session, this Wednesday night, it's just going to be a check-in. How are people doing? School boards are releasing new information regularly. Stop by, ask questions, what's on your mind. We'd be happy to see you, and stay tuned. We will have more things on the Your Space side, as well as through our PCMH group in the coming weeks and months. We do hope all of you